Hey everyone, it's Jason from Jason Polak Photography, YouTube, and this video again is about artificial intelligence. I bet some of you are probably sick of me talking about artificial intelligence, but nevertheless, that's what this video is about. So, this video is going to be a little bit more conversational than some of my other videos, and that's because I guess I was too lazy to prepare a script, but then editing this video is going to take a long time too because there's no script, but that's okay. I did prepare a little bit of an outline. I don't know how much I'm going to stick to the outline, but I prepared an outline. And the topic of this video is basically artificial intelligence, why you should be suspicious of it, why you should be worried about it. I don't mean worried, I mean suspicious is a better word. I mean, if you're worried about something, it means you're afraid of it. And I don't think you should be afraid of it, but you should be suspicious of it. And I think it's a good idea to be very cautious about your use of artificial intelligence. So why is that? Well, I think a lot of people are worried about artificial intelligence for immediate reasons. Immediate reasons like artificial intelligence threatens to take away many jobs. And that's a big thing. I mean, as a content creator myself, as someone who does photography, I'm worried about the future of artificial intelligence in a way, or I think that it has a possibility of taking away my livelihood. I'm not too worried about it, but I'm a little bit worried about it. I think there's always going to be a place for human-made art, for human-made creations. As you know, I don't use artificial intelligence. I'm 100% against it. I'm not on the fence. I hate AI. AI does threaten to take away jobs. It threatens other areas of human functioning as well. For example, scams. I mean, people have been using AI. People use AI nowadays to scam people, to create fake news, to do things like impersonate people's voices, videos of people saying things that those actual people would never say for the purposes of propaganda. A lot of people are worried about that, and those are very valid concerns. Those are very valid concerns, yeah. But I want to talk about AI more in terms of its long-term effects, or more in terms of greater societal damage that may not be immediately apparent based on some of the things, or most of the things that the mass media often talks about. The mass media is kind of a leech. They sort of plug into society and they take advantage of it, take advantage of people, and they have their own interests. They're funded, their money comes from the state of functioning of the system. Their money comes from the state of functioning of the system. And so they tend to talk about things that immediately inspire fear. Oh, AI is going to take your job. AI is going to be used for scams. Of course, the media always wants to inspire fear based on immediate atomic events that can easily be forgotten. And they don't want to talk about things that are fundamentally wrong with society, because that very society is what keeps them alive. So I want to talk about something that goes beyond that. And that is the conversion of people into anonymous producers, the conversion of people into a more mechanical being. So that's the main problem I'm talking about today. I think you should be concerned about AI, not just because it can cause discomfort in terms of things like losing a job or fake news or whatnot. I think AI has a bigger and more overarching goal, and that is it plays a strong role in the anonymization and conversion of people into more mechanical entities that function merely for the system. So what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, we have to understand that what I'm talking about is not unique to artificial intelligence. It's not unique to artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is merely a physical manifestation of a phenomenon that has been going on for a much longer time. And that phenomenon is the sort of conversion of the world into a mechanical, technological world where the primary goal of life is no longer living, but the production of technology. So what I mean by that is that at one point in time, in fact, in most points in time of human history, the majority of human functioning was for making life better, or at least for making life livable. And you can see that by looking at history. The ancient Greeks, for example, had a very developed society. I mean, not everything was perfect, but they had a very developed society. And they weren't so keen. They didn't place so much emphasis on technological development. Yes, they had some innovations, but their whole society was not organized around innovation like our society is today. In fact, the way our society is so focused on innovation and technological development is rather pathological. The Amish are a great example. I mean, thank goodness for the Amish, because the Amish really show that there is a mode of being, a mode of living that is not centered around achieving more advanced states of technology. I mean, they are very cautious about technology. They use some technology, but their life isn't centered around it. Every aspect of modern human civilization in general, and I mean the developed nations, Western states, all the countries that basically exist today, their entire mode of being is now centered around technological development, innovation. It's integrated within our system. Without innovation now, we do not have a stable society. Our stability is only because we keep innovating. And that's a problem, because now we're innovating for the sake of keeping our society alive, not just for improving life. You know, in the past, people would seek out tools, would seek out discoveries to make life better. Now we seek out discoveries so we can power civilization. And that's a very bad thing, because lots of inventions, scientific investigation, lots of technological creation, those activities are undertaken because we need to do them to survive. And they may not be necessarily good for civilization. For example, social media. I mean, I think the world is much worse off with social media, but social media is a technology that was created to take advantage of human instincts and power a system whose primary purpose is the furthering of technology and the furthering of consumerism. It doesn't really provide a net benefit to society. Of course, that's arguable, but I think that the sort of effects are clear. I think if we had a world with more small communities, less social media, that would be a better world. I think most people can agree on that. And as a result, because that axiom is embedded in our society now, that also erodes the general concept of democracy. We no longer have a democracy in the modern world. Many issues that are important to human beings today cannot be voted on. They're not on the table for discussion. So basically, when you go to vote in countries that have a so-called democracy, like Canada or the United States or any other country, you're voting for issues. Yes, some of the issues may be important, like healthcare and jobs, but you don't have the capability anymore to vote for certain issues that, if deliberated on, may slow technological development, because technological development is necessary for the stability of our society only because we've integrated it into that. And that's easily demonstrated by looking in history, by looking at societies whose primary purpose was not innovation. But what does this have to do with AI? So technology's primary purpose now, and I'm talking about purpose not in the sense of a conscious purpose, but more like an emergent phenomenon. Although I guess some people could make an argument that technology has some form of something that resembles consciousness. In any case, however you interpret it, technology's primary purpose now is to make humanity more mechanical, make human beings more replaceable. And the reason for that is that if the more human beings are mechanical, the more they're anonymous, the more the individuals don't matter, then the more efficient technology becomes, because human beings, like parts in a computer, will become easily swappable. And you can see that by social media. You can see that on the internet. What we produce now is much more important than who we are. If you see photography works, for example, now this is a photography channel. I'm a photographer. I'm a wildlife photographer. If you look at the state of photography today, a lot of photography, the vast majority of photography, is scrolling through hundreds of photos, clicking like buttons, giving a comment or two, great photo, going on to the next one. Do people even remember who took photos or who took which photo? They look at even the greatest photos. If you look at photography competitions, it's just a wall of photos that you scroll through, you give it a like, you say, that's a great photo, and then maybe some of them touch you in some way, but you usually don't remember the photographer, and you keep going, and then it takes 5 minutes, and you go on to something else. There's no thought involved. It's a mechanical consumption that stimulates the most superficial of our senses, of our visual senses, and then we go on to something else. And that's good for the technological system, because the more we scroll, the more we see ads, the more we buy things, and buying things, again, is one of the main mechanisms that powers the technological society, at least today. I mean, right now, the technological system requires human beings to make it grow. That may not always be the case in the future. In the future, technology may not require us, and then in that case, it will probably eradicate us, or at least make us completely subservient. It will make us completely subservient and keep us only for the sake of some menial tasks that can't be accomplished using a vast array of artificial intelligence and mechanical robots and so forth. But we see that technology and the internet and telecommunications technologies in particular, what they're doing is making us anonymous mechanical entities whose sort of individualness, whose soul doesn't matter anymore. And that's a process that's been going on for a while with social media, with the internet, even with YouTube. And artificial intelligence is the next stage of that process. So the internet and social media for the last several decades has already started this process. AI is a kind of manifestation of the next stage. It's a kind of component. It's a key apex component of that process that mechanizes us. And how does it do that? Well, you've seen AI, some AI features. I'm sure everyone has seen. AI is available in email programs now. You can get AI to rephrase your email into some standard form. You can type something and AI can enhance it. AI can put it into complete sentences. AI can make it into a nice chunk of prose. And you can see why that's a bad thing, right? Because AI is acting sort of, in that case, is acting as a translation layer for your own individuality and transforming it into something uniform. And that's not just for emails. You can see it for all sorts of things, for videos even. There are AI programs to automatically edit your video, automatically edit your voice. And communication now often is done via AI-generated images. So much imagery now on the internet is AI-generated. And AI, you can see one of the main purposes of AI is to make us more efficient. It's to make us less individual and more efficient. And that's the emphasis there, again, is on production rather than individuality. Actually, a company contacted me recently and offered me some sort of AI service that would automatically generate more videos for my channel based on scripts, based on past videos. See, if I generated a video like that, that wouldn't even be me talking. That would be some kind of shadow distortion of the machine. And maybe it would even be good. Maybe it would be strange, but in a few years, that type of technology will definitely be good. And so people will be watching things that have nothing to do with me, that are just sort of extensions of me via the machine. And if I quit making videos one day, if I went on to do something else, that machine could keep on functioning, which shows that the attempt of the machine to make me more anonymous. And the same thing is happening in photography. Okay, you have so many tools now in photography for image editing and for image generation. You have tools to remove people from the scene, to remove things, to add things, to denoise your images. And those tools, again, show that the emphasis is no longer on creating something artistic with photography. The emphasis is just on production. So you see that AI here too is not something exactly new. It's just a more concentrated form of a process that has been going on for a while to de-emphasize the creator, to de-emphasize the artist behind the art, to de-emphasize the person behind whatever they create. And for photography, you could say that, well, haven't photographers been doing such things like removing things from the scene forever? That's true. But you cannot consider the phenomenon in vacuo. You have to consider the phenomenon as part of a process which is integrated with an industrial level of production. So you see, it's not just a tool. It's not just a tool which promotes removing signs from photos or removing people in the background if you take a shot, or removing people from a touristic scene in Paris. It's a tool that also promotes industrial production. And it shifts the emphasis. It's a subtle shift of emphasis from taking pictures and expressing yourself with pictures to producing as many pictures as possible. You see, in the past, certain edits on photos would be relatively hard, and you would only do them for the best photos. But now with AI, you can remove things from a photo in a couple of seconds. You can do it to hundreds of photos, and in a morning, you can pretty much edit photos to your heart's content, hundreds of them. So you see, the emphasis, again, shifts from creating something that you really think is interesting to mass production. And that takes away the soul of the art. It takes away the soul of the activity again, because mass production is inherently against our spirit. It takes something. We have a tendency to take a process and try and make it easier. We are tool-using creatures. But in natural conditions, typically, it would be enough to make the process sufficiently easy so that life is enjoyable. Now, we're not doing that anymore. We're taking a process, making it easier, and then we keep on making it easier, and we keep on making it easier. And the process of increasing efficiency keeps going. And when the process of efficiency keeps going, it becomes a self-sustaining activity. The process of making things more efficient is now a kind of self-sustaining activity that exists unto itself. And when that happens, we no longer focus on the results of the initial stage of making something easier to make life better. We focus on the process of efficiency itself, and that process is antithetical to our existence as human beings. The other example that's kind of close to my heart is AI noise reduction in photography. You may have seen that there are several programs like Topaz AI or DxO Pure Raw that take a photo that is very noisy, taken at a high ISO, and it denoises it very well. It makes it look like it's taken at a much lower ISO. It removes the grain, it removes the color noise, and it does it in a much more effective way, seemingly, than traditional AI noise reduction algorithms. And that's very interesting to me because you know what? Well, there are two points here. Number one, see, when you take a picture at a high ISO, when you take a picture with very little light, it doesn't just become noisy. It also loses color fidelity, and it also loses dynamic range. So basically, besides being noisy, it also is worse in other ways. So AI noise reduction takes the picture and tries to remove as much noise as possible and does it in a seemingly much better way than traditional algorithms, but it leaves those other flaws intact. So basically, you get a picture that's a compromise. And you see again that this software promotes the idea that you should produce as much as possible, as long as it looks sufficiently good when you scroll through it quickly on a small screen, and you're just giving it a like or two and you're moving on to the next picture. See, again, it's compatible with that superficial way of consuming art, with that superficial way of consuming anything, with that superficial way of living, with that superficial way of being. So the second thing about AI noise reduction, which is I find kind of very interesting, is that, well, if you've done any photography for a long time at all, you'll realize something, and I've realized this when thinking about AI noise reduction, is that the best photos are typically those ones taken in good light, probably ISO less than 6400. If you take a photo, and I've measured this numerically and rigorously. If you take a photo, a very noisy photo, and you run it through AI noise reduction software, you will likely improve the photo maybe by 1.5 stops, approximately. You're not going to improve the photo to a great extent. For example, if you take the photo at ISO 6400, maybe a higher value, maybe ISO 20,000, then the result you get from AI noise reduction software will probably look like it was taken at ISO like 7,000 or 8,000, at least in terms of detail and color rendition. And so AI noise reduction is encouraging you to take photos that are mediocre and make them into something that look a little better. The best photos by far are those taken at ISO 6400 or 3200 or below. Now that may change a little bit with future sensor technology, but the point I'm trying to make is that the best photos don't need AI noise reduction, but AI noise reduction is hyped up to make it seem like it's very important, which is kind of shifting the emphasis of photography, onto photos that are taken at high ISOs, just so you can produce more. It allows you to produce more photos that look good instead of focusing on the best photos that you take, and that's kind of counterproductive to the spirit of photography, in my opinion. And there's a cost. There's a cost to AI noise reduction. What is the cost? Well, actually, AI noise reduction isn't just reducing noise. To make the image look so good, it does a small amount of interpolation. You can see that I'll put a picture on screen here. It's a picture I took at a very low level of light, and I ran it through AI noise reduction to show you what the end result looks like. And if you look at it at a very close scale, you'll see that these small spots on the parrot have been transformed into lines. In other words, AI noise reduction isn't just removing noise, it's also interpolating detail, it's also generating detail at a fine level of scale, at a small scale. And so it's kind of taking its database of images, its network that's been trained on millions of images to interpolate in your image. It's almost like instead of just denoising, it's redrawing your image as best as it can from its input data, which is the photo you give it. And so I question, this kind of blurs the line between what is photography anymore. It's no longer a matter of just the photo being taken from the camera. It's about adding more detail. It's about taking something from real life and creating something that is machine manipulated to a degree that's not just a matter of simple editing, but it goes beyond that, and it uses millions of other images to interpolate. And I think that sort of also crosses the line for me in photography. That's one of the main reasons why I don't use AI noise reduction. Like, I'm a wildlife photographer. Frequently, I don't have enough light, but I never use AI noise reduction in my photography, except of course for these tests. I've tested this software to show you what it does. The final question I want to answer is, I think some people will say, in response to what I'm saying now, some people will say, well, can't we guard against that? Maybe AI is just a tool. Maybe we can use it. The problem with that is that human action and the choices we have are things which are fundamentally constrained and determined by our environment. And our environment is primarily technological. So even though you can somewhat make free choices within the constraints of technology is moving so fast that the constraints that we have to make our choices are moving so fast that we can't adapt to them anymore. It's true that, I guess, at least if you accept free will, or at least if you accept that we can make choices, yes, we can make choices. The first caveat is that we're not always making rational choices. We're operating largely on instinct as well. It's an interaction between our higher mental functions and instinct. And our instinct often overpowers our rational choice, and that instinct is also operating with the domain of technology. And second of all, yes, sometimes you can make individual choices, and everyone is free to choose. But the point is that if we do choose to use AI on a large scale, if we do choose to use AI as a society, individuals in a single point in time may not feel the pressures of AI, but over time, our choices will affect society, and our choices will aid the development of a technology which is highly constraining, highly manipulative. and something that I think most human beings cannot control. The problem is that even if we can make choices, technology is moving so fast, and our choices partially determine how fast the technology moves. So even though at an individual level, some of you may be able to make choices, intelligent choices about how to use AI and how it affects your own artistic creation. We make choices, our choices will cause the furtherment of technology. They will also affect the current state, the current societal state of the expression of art. And because we also operate on instinct, we may not be as free to make choices as we think. But we can recognize that AI is a very detrimental force, that modern technology itself is a very detrimental force. And so I think if you care about the state of art, if you care to have a healthy environment in which art can be expressed, then I think it does not make any sense to support AI. It does not make any sense to use AI. And I think a lot of people think they're helpless and that they can't do anything about the situation, even if they don't like AI. But we're not as helpless as we seem. And you can make a choice to stand in for what you believe in, and you can make a choice to be audible that you don't like AI. So if you think that AI is this deterministic force, is part of this deterministic technological force that is dangerous for the modern state of art and the modern state of humanity in general, I think you should make a stand. I think you should announce that you don't use AI and make an unequivocal stand against AI. I personally don't use AI, generative AI, or other forms of AI. I know there's a little bit of a blurred line between what AI is. Machine learning is classified as AI, and of course the simplest machine learning algorithms are just essentially logically equivalent to least squares regression, linear regression. And then that can't really be considered AI, of course, it's just minimizing an equation. So the most simple examples of machine learning are literally just maximizing variables. But nevertheless, complex machine learning at some point develops some sort of property, an emergent property, in the following sense. With simple machine learning, it's possible to completely understand what's going on and replicate the results yourself without using any training data. Whereas more advanced AI is the kind of AI I'm talking about, is a kind which needs millions of images, which needs millions of gigabytes of data to be trained on. And in such a complex model, we gain an emergent phenomenon of some kind of thing that resembles intelligence. It may not be real intelligence, but it's intelligence. And that's the kind of AI I'm talking about. So that kind of AI, generative AI, I don't even use grammar checkers like Grammarly. I'm totally against grammar checkers like Grammarly or other types of AI tools, AI rewriting tools. I don't use any of that stuff. You know, I make videos on YouTube. The part of the video is actually audio. I'm talking into a microphone now. I have to edit that audio manually. I could use AI to do it, but I don't. AI might save me a few hours, but then again, I think, well, I actually enjoy audio editing, and if I keep automating away all of my life, then what is there to life if we're automating everything? If we don't have our hands deep inside the process of doing things, then we lose the ability to transmit our personality into it. You know, I put a lot of effort into editing the audio. I do certain things like introduce small amounts of spaces between words that may not be completely clear. I even manually de-S my audio, at least for the S sounds that sound very strong. All of those little things, you get your hands inside the art, you get your hands inside the process. If you don't have your hands inside the process, then you can't really impart your soul into it. And I think that sounds kind of mystical in this day and age, and that's sort of looked upon as something that doesn't make any sense in our age of supposed enlightenment and rationality. But I think, you know, rationality be damned. It's just a small part of human existence. We shouldn't completely rely on rationality and a mechanical way of thought. Technology doesn't just transform the way we do things. It doesn't just constrain our choices. What technology does is even transform our way of thinking into a more mechanical way of thinking. And you know, I think that's totally wrong. We're ignoring so many parts of being human because we're so steeped into technology. Technology is not some kind of God. Technology is not some kind of thing that's all good that can help us with everything that will make life better. That's a myth. Some technology maybe can make life better, but an endless stream of technology whose primary purpose is to further the capitalistic system, to further technology itself, is not necessarily going to make life better. How many people's lives better are made from having the latest phone versus the previous phone if no one ever had the latest phone? How many people's lives are made better by having faster internet? I don't really think life is made better with that. I'm firmly against that sort of technology as well. So, I mean, I create videos on YouTube. I use technology. I like my cameras. I like taking pictures of birds, but there's a limit. There's a limit. And I think the most important thing is to take something you believe in and to make a strong stand about it, to be uncompromising, to be unequivocal about your moral beliefs, about your feelings about what's going on with technology. And maybe you don't agree with that. Maybe you don't agree. Maybe you think that technology isn't all good force. Maybe you think that billionaires are a good thing. Maybe you think that tech companies that pull in trillions of dollars by manipulating us with their algorithms is a good thing. If you're one of those technophiles, I think you're kind of a lost cause. But if you have any soul, if you have any shred of humanity left in you, then I think you should take a serious look at what technology is doing to our society. What technology is doing more in the long term, not just what it can bring individuals benefits, not just how it creates local maxima in the short term, not just how it can slightly improve things, but then in the long run, what happens in the long run there? I mean, fossil fuels, cars have allowed us to travel to further places than we could ever before. Airplanes allow us to travel the globe. But what was the consequence? The consequence is global warming. Was it a good thing? No, I don't think so. Yes, I've traveled before. We've all traveled before. We've all used cars before, probably, or at least benefited from the existence of automobiles in some way within the constraints of modern society. But maybe we should take a longer-term look at what's going on here. What's going to happen to the future in the long term with AI? For hundreds of years, we've had fossil fuels, and now the result is climate change. We're starting with AI. We've only been a few years into this generative AI crap. What's going to happen in 100 years? How is that going to modify our society? We need to ask these questions. We need to be cautious. We need to regress some of these technologies and stop using them. And I think that's something worth thinking about, even if you don't agree on the surface. But that's all I have to say about the topic. Those are my thoughts on artificial intelligence. I hope you enjoyed them. So thanks for watching this video. I know it was a little more serious than most of my videos, and I know I talk about AI a lot. That's not going to go away. I'm a little bit idiosyncratic that way, but thanks for watching this video, and I hope to see you again next time.